So this is an interesting article that I found on the internet, right? Epic's consumer strategy is bold. Its tactics push the boundaries. Now, I think it pushes the boundaries of a lot of anti-competitive practices as well, but we'll get into it later. Yeah. According to people in the room, Judy Faulkner's vision on Epic in the Epic's 2022 user group meeting was epic in the grandest sense of the word. The company, which had grown as a unified clinical and billing EHR system, was now laying out a roadmap in which it would be the digital front door for all things consumer facing. So in this case, these are patients. A massive panoply of capabilities, including, according to Epic's own subsequent documentation, customer relationship management, provider finders, and online scheduling, online check-in, patient financial experience, and many others. Now, this is new, right? Like, so you're not really able to find providers through Epic right now. Like, Epic is usually used by the providers. That's their main tool to get paid. And as said here, it's mostly being used as a billing system, but it also like has a lot of, it's kind of become the main tool that clinicians use. But this sort of like takes an Uber sort of an approach to the healthcare system, where you're able to find other providers and you're able to schedule things online, right? Core to enabling all this was shifting how patients interact with MyChart, the patient-facing app that allows individuals to check their health records. Historically, each MyChart account was tethered between an individual and a hospital system and represented a single portal for the individual to view his or her records. If an individual had been seen at multiple different hospital systems, then they would simply have multiple MyChart instances or entirely separate accounts and logins. Now, Epic would stitch together the health records and data from different hospitals on behalf of the individual in advancing what colloquially has been called Epic's National MyChart strategy, and enable robust new functionality. Like, whenever I say robust, I think like it's AI generated, but I think this was before ChatGPT era. So creating compelling network effects between consumers and hospitals. Now, again, so what Epic is trying to do here is sort of new. It's not something that is completely new entirely. Like, there have been startups that have been trying to like stitch together the healthcare data of patients. There have been multiple PHR apps before, but Epic, being one of the main providers at the hospital, now moving to the consumer side is huge, right? Like this, if they properly implement this, then I think they would have a monopoly. But let's keep reading. There were only a few problems with Epic's strategy. First, many customers weren't asking Epic to develop these capabilities because, again, most of them were like our big hospitals with a lot of inpatient beds. There were startups and incumbents already providing many of these capabilities. And third, the company was in a race with a federal agency, which was pushing for open standards and access that threatened Epic's plans. Now, again, this is the ASTP and ONC. Now, this is become the norm. This is like the G10 initiative, which like opens up the data for patients to access through an API, right? But again, there is a big caveat here, like, which is it doesn't allow you to access all information, right? But for a company that had slowly and readily become the dominant health technology player, whose staff meetings for a period ended half jokingly on a slide with the words world domination on them, these problems are all fixable. I actually have an article of like what that looks like. Let me quickly see. Willy Wonka and the Epic Factory. Like, yeah, that's the slide. Okay, so this this is like from Epic's office, and they have a lot of like crazy shit going on in their office, honestly. So let's go back. Yeah. So the promise of consumer empowerment tools. As modern history has demonstrated time and time again, the ability to own or control the consumer entry point for technology can be a strategic advantage. I think, in my opinion, I think that is the only moat that people will have, right? Like, if somebody is entering an ecosystem through you, then you can monetize them whatever, like you can do whatever, right? Apple's sleek product design, user experience, and tight ecosystem enabled it to extract 30% of app developer revenues. Now, this has been, in a recent court ruling, this has been overturned. Apple can't do this. Apple is not allowed to prevent other people from putting a link which they can use to like make the purchase. But then this has been going on for long enough that I think Apple already made billions off of this, right? So now again, there are anti-monopoly and like other anti-competitive laws that are coming up. But still, Google's dominance in search has positioned it to be the entryway for the internet for billions of consumers, regardless of their ultimate destination, resulting in extraordinary revenue growth and profitability. So Google still almost 90% runs on Google Ads, right? And none of the other services that Google offers, like everything is kind of, it's paid off by Google Ads. So even Google Cloud, like I think it's barely profitable. It's just getting there. So in healthcare, the ability to meaningfully engage consumers through technology has held promise of solving intractable problems, while also potentially positioning the firm that figures out how to do so as a new locus of power. Similarly as Apple and Google above, triaging care options for consumers, navigating them to lower cost services, facilitating payments, and providing modern convenience options are just a few of the hundreds of use cases that consumer-facing technology holds. Now, it's just a matter of time before someone becomes the de facto consumer-facing app, right? And then they become the gateway, like sort of like the Uber app, and then everybody else sort of like just gets on the same network, right? Now, is that going to be Epic, right? Like, is Epic going to be that entry point? Let's find out. Key questions facing the firms seeking to find the healthcare's holy grail are how best to do this and where to start, as consumer habits and sentiment towards healthcare has proven challenging for tech companies to figure out. For instance, tech giants Microsoft and Google had both placed significant bets on ushering a new era of consumer empowerment in the late 2000s. With Microsoft Health Vault, you had Google Health, you even had Google Health Studio for the EHR side of things, known as Patient Health Records, PHR. The two companies sought to enable consumers to access, aggregate, and store potentially share their health records. Now, obviously, this didn't work out. In retrospect, Microsoft and Google's efforts were perhaps a bit too early, as both initiatives were shut down in the early 2010s, before an ecosystem of health technology adoption, connectivity, and capabilities could have feasibly supported their vision, and before consumers had a compelling reason to change their own use of technology to engage in their healthcare. Now, by 2022, however, the ecosystem had arrived. After the EHR incentive programs, more than 90% of doctors and hospitals had EHRs. And again, most of this is like Epic. Epic was like the prototype EHR, which they based a lot of the meaningful use act on. So, a lot of people just adopted Epic because it was the first EHR that had all of the required checkboxes for meaningful use, right? The COVID-19 pandemic drove rapid adoption of telehealth by both practitioners and consumers. Approximately $100 billion in venture capital had flown into health technology innovation. New price transparency policies were shedding light, so like sunlight, into formerly opaque and labyrinthine contracting practices. The 21st Century Cures Act put teeth into driving interoperability, introducing information blocking as a civil penalty with millions of dollar fines, right? Now, again, they're not really taking that much action for people who block information, not yet, but then they could potentially do this, right? One industry group published a report titled Unbundling Epic, How the EHR Market is Being Disrupted. This author proclaimed the EHR is dead. Again, like this is the EHR is dead, long live the EHR platform. This is an excellent article that I think everyone has to read. This is on Forbes. You can definitely take a look at this. So if the EHR was dead or being disrupted, then every EHR company needed a survival plan. Epic's fear and unfair advantage. According to one hospital executive, It was this backdrop that concerned Epic's leadership. With a rapid influx of new players and a shifting balance of power, Epic might be relegated to just being the pipes. Like now, the EHR is definitely, it has a lot of pipes. It connects you to different systems, and you do need this, right? But then if they are forcing these EHRs to open up their data and allowing access through all of these Fire APIs, then they just become the pipes, and other people can build apps to monetize the real value on top of this data, right? While others capitalize on new opportunities. Given the company's rigid belief, proven correct time and time again, that it alone would deliver the best results for its customers and consumers, Epic thought such an outcome would be a disaster. To combat this risk, Epic by mid-2022 had a new strategy with MyChart and network effects at the heart of it. Prior to this point, Epic had allowed its hospital customers to build their own customer-facing applications on top of the MyChart chassis, or to bring in third-party solutions to sit on top of and integrate with MyChart. To support this, Epic provided software development kits, SDKs, to customers and allowed integration options to third-party vendors. Supporting this innovation, and again, this is not just Smart on Fire. I think Epic also has other ways to deeply integrate into MyChart, and they have their own SDKs as well. Supporting this initiative was important to some Epic customers, in particular larger health systems, typically those with more resources and sophistication, viewed their consumer-facing capabilities as an important way to differentiate themselves in the market. The new strategy entailed driving adoption and utilization of MyChart, already the best known patient-facing application in the country. And again, like it's used by like millions already. Developing new consumer-facing capabilities and pushing hospitals to use those, and capturing consumers as their preferred application of choice. Now, again, in short, Epic sought to expand its sphere of influence from a position of market dominance over one sector of healthcare, hospital systems, into consumers, right, patients. To do so, Epic crafted a coherent policy and a set of tactics designed to persuade hospitals to get on board with its vision, muscle out competitors, and influence regulation in order to achieve its ends. Epic's tactics leverage its strength but raise important anti-competitive questions. As previously reported, Epic arguably has a monopoly position with its inpatient EHR among multi-hospital health systems and academic medical centers. Since that reporting, Epic has continued to gain market share. Its software is now used at hospitals, accounting for 51% of all beds nationwide. As multiple hospital executives have put it in conversations, Epic is running away with the EHR market, at least inpatient as of now, right? Outpatient, you probably have like ECW, you have some Athena Health here and there, but Epic majorly in inpatient, I don't think Cerner is even close to beating its feature set or like its UI UX, right? The EHR may be commonly thought of as a clinical application, but it may be more accurate to think of it as the hospital's operating system. The distinction can be important. An application provides workflow capabilities to achieve a specific objective, while an operating system acts as an interface between the user and hardware that controls the rules by which applications function and the resources it has access to. Consider that while doctors and clinicians use the EHR as an application, it looks different from the hospital enterprise perspective. The EHR is the default system that is its most highly trained, paid, and busiest staff interact with every day, rendering it the single most important system. And it also has become the source of truth, right? Like all the data is in the EHR. The data entered by clinicians stores patient records and associated information that is used for mission-critical purposes, including billing, reporting, and audit functions. And accordingly, it is the system which virtually every other application must accordingly integrate with, and not vice versa. So you have the EHR at the center, and every other application must integrate with the EHR to pull this data out, right? The EHR doesn't care about what is going on in these other applications, but if there is important information going on, then the practitioner would definitely want to have a copy of this in the EHR. We are seeing that again and again. A lot of times people build smart on fire practitioner facing apps, but then people complain that, hey, I don't see the same report in my EPIC system. I would like to have a copy, right? Even if you can see the embedded smart on fire patient app or like the practitioner app in an iframe, it doesn't matter. You still have to have a copy in EPIC, right? So as the hospital's operating system, EPIC's national MyChart strategy starts out with natural built-in advantages versus patient-facing technology competitors, including MyChart footprint. The federal meaningful use program required hospitals to use EHRs that provided a patient portal. Today, EPIC's MyChart boasts between 190 million and 300 million consumer accounts, an incredible early advantage. Now, I don't know if this is unique accounts or if this is the same patient logging into multiple MyChart instances, but then I think it doesn't matter. Like, these numbers are like insane, right? Given the increasing utilization of personal health records. Key consumer infrastructure and integration. A patient portal is of limited utility to a consumer, but one that starts out integrated with the provider system, allowing single sign-on scheduling, messaging, telehealth, and related ways the consumer may want to interact with her provider can provide substantial value. Right now, I think there is an argument here, right? Like, I think it's not just let me just switch to my board here. So I think there is the MyChart instance as it is right now. So you have, for example, you have MyChart, yeah, and it basically connects to one single EHR instance right now, right? So, and then the patient is able to log in and they're able to see basically whatever is going on in that particular EHR instance. Now, a PHR, in essence, should technically connect multiple EHRs, right? Now, MyChart is kind of on its way to do this, right? Like, can a MyChart login result in multiple EHRs being connected? Now, at some point, I would say EPIC would have to connect with, let's say, another Cerner instance, or like another another EHR. But I think they've already placed themselves really in a really good position, because most of this is going to be EPIC, right? There's going to be EPIC. It's going to be EPIC. And these other ones are going to be less than 50% of the whole market. So MyChart, if it becomes the personal health record, it will have to make these connections to all of these different systems. But EPIC is in such a good place to probably do this and implement this that it scares me that they'll probably become a monopoly, and it'll be hard for anyone else to compete with them, right? So let's go back, right? So key consumer infrastructure and integration. A patient portal is of limited functionality. And again, like, EPIC already has all of these APIs. Now, somebody might still be struggling with how do I do scheduling using Fire, or how do I do this? But then EPIC doesn't need to even use Fire. EPIC they can use their own internal APIs, and that is the problem here. Like, again, if we come back to this diagram, right? So this other EHRs, this might be through Fire, but EPIC can actually very well use its own internal APIs here. And this MyChart PHR could do something that none of the other PHRs would be able to do. EPIC can easily block everybody else out of these particular functions, right? So, hospital relationships and trust. The value of being able to roll out new capabilities to existing customers, representing 60% of all health systems spend at a single event, in this case, the 2022 EPIC user group meeting, cannot be overstated. And again, like, EPIC just pushes a button, it's already there in like more than 50% of the hospitals. According to hospital and industry executives, Epic is in the process of pulling all of these levers. And while some competitors may complain about these built-in advantages, the reality is that Epic is dominant in the inpatient EHR market for good reason. And its smart strategy to leverage its existing strengths across product capabilities and relationships to advance is its national MyChart vision. However, some of Epic's other tactics, though they may prove to be very incredibly effective, raise questions. Here are 4 in particular. You are on your own. A yo-yo, again, you are on your own, yo-yo, right? So can mean a foolish or incompetent person. A term Epic has decided to apply to some of its customers. At the company's 2022 user group meeting, Judy Faulkner introduced the term "you're on your own" to refer to Epic hospital customers who want to maintain their own digital front door strategy, shifting from its historical stance of being agnostic as to whether hospitals used only Epic's MyChart or prefer to develop their own consumer-facing strategy. That integrated with MyChart, Epic made clear it wanted hospitals to forego their own strategy and get on board with a more Epic-controlled version of MyChart. Monopoly. They're aggregating all of the entry of the user into the healthcare record, right? So consistent with its desire are Epic materials that clearly demonstrate feature divergence for customers adopting its preferred personalized version of MyChart versus feature discrimination for these you're on your own or yo-yo customers, right? So let's take a look at this image here. So they kind of have these 3 tiers. The you're on your own group is, you build your own thing and just integrate using the APIs. They are basically saying, hey, you're going to take the longest to get the new MyChart features. You're going to have the most flexibility, but you're also going to have the highest cost, right? And then they prefer people who are doing the personalized branding on top of MyChart. Again, lowest cost, get all of the features automatically. And the builder, which is, you can kind of do these micro websites or something. And there is minimal development, but then you embed these things into MyChart. This is like a balance, but then they are actively discouraging anyone who's on this side, right? According to executives from multiple systems who found themselves being called yo-yos, it's like a funny term, Epic also subsequently and unilaterally has attempted to change its fee structure for technology and support costs related to MyChart. Historically, Epic charged a flat fee to support hospitals who either built their own consumer-facing application that integrated with MyChart or partnered with commercial vendors for the same purpose. Commercial, I think Deloitte, right? It's probably Deloitte. After it announced its national MyChart strategy, however, Epic began notifying yo-yo customers that it was shifting to a new pricing structure based on the number of customers the hospital served. Get wrecked. So this is so a hospital will probably sell like millions of customers, right? So if they change the pricing to say that, hey, if you have your own MyChart or if you have your own portal and then you also want this extra thing, then you have to pay per customer. People are not that's like going to be millions of dollars. Several hospital executives mentioned that this would increase the relevant MyChart fees by several 1,000% from tens of thousands of dollars annually to millions. The alternative was to avoid these incremental fees by abandoning their own consumer-facing strategies and opting into Epic's national MyChart strategy. Yes. So it's like you're on your own. You're not going to get the features that you want. We are going to charge you a bomb for it. You are like basically everything that they can do to push people away from building things and integrating on top of Epic and just letting people use MyChart as the entry point, right? But then there is a bigger thing happening here. Like if Epic gets away with this, right, and you are able to actually do this, then the hospital sort of loses its sovereignty, right? The patient has to come through an Epic managed personal or like patient health record. And think about that for a second, right? Like if a patient has to book an appointment through that Epic app and then they decide which hospital or which system they go to, Epic can sort of do a lot of things here. They can start charging people a fee for referring the patient to them instead of another institute. So they're doing something similar to what Google does here, right? So you need to appease Epic's algorithms, and you need to maybe pay Epic an extra fee just to get shown as a preferred health system, right? Again, like dystopian territory, but still, let's see. In response to questions about these changes, an Epic spokesman noted that MyChart fees themselves had not changed since 1999. With respect to technology and support costs, the spokesman noted, with your on your own, YoYo customers can choose to license additional tools that allow their developers to embed parts of MyChart into their own customer applications. Probably bullshit, probably something that, but yeah, I do get the business strategy behind this, right? Eliminating pre-existing interoperability access. Epic had historically supported its YoYo customers in part by providing MyChart integration and interoperability resources to vendors that those customers choose to work with for consumer-facing applications. With the introduction of its national MyChart strategy, however, Epic has begun restricting access to those resources. In some cases, Epic has allegedly let slip to some vendors, including those they have worked with for years collaboratively, that they are now competitors, and that Epic would be sunsetting or eliminating existing interoperability resources, and that the vendors would not have access to future iterations of the same resources. Based on a review of an Epic email, and again, like think about this, right? Like you're spending your whole your startup, or you're just spending years and years developing this patient health record, right? Or you're a hospital institute, or you're a healthcare network. You're developing this with so much care. You're putting in so much money into this, and you have this beautifully built thing that patients are happy with. And Epic just one day decides, you know what? We are sunsetting all those resources. You can't do that anymore. Like, just think about that for a second. If you have Epic as the source of data, and then they just decide that they're going to not support this anymore, there's nothing that you can do. Like, they're going to increase their fees. They're charging millions instead of thousands. Like, everything is pointing towards monopolistic practices, right? So based on a review of an Epic email response to an individual requesting the status of previously available resources, what Epic appears to be doing in some cases is withdrawing application APIs from its open.epic site and shifting those to its vendor services program. Again, you got to pay a bomb for that. You got to sign something separately. You got to pay per API call, or you have to have some sort of revenue split with Epic. I don't know how much exactly it is, but I think it's close to, I think it's an NDA document. I can't say exactly how much they charge, but there is a revenue split happening here. An initial challenge for any vendor seeking to integrate with Epic is that APIs in its vendor service programs are not published or discoverable. A vendor seeking to apply to this program must fill out and submit a questionnaire, but Epic provides no guidance on what the criteria for inclusion or exclusion are, nor how it determines what API resources will be available or to whom. Like, they're completely, this practice exposes Epic to claims that it may be picking winners and losers. Whew, sheesh. Like, so this is, again, like 100% super monopolistic practices, right? Like, you decide who gets the APIs, you decide what APIs they get, you decide who gets it. You have no control, right? Delaying standards which may drive MyChart adoption. The NI, National Institute of Standards and Technology, is a branch of the United States Department of Commerce. Its IAL2 standard is intended to allow for remote identity proofing, which is necessary to enable a future in which individuals can request and access their own medical records from existing health information networks that provide use routinely. Enabling individuals to use digital applications of their choice to access their records is a priority for the ASTP/ONC. Hopefully, not all of this doesn't get scraped by the current administration with them scraping the NIH and everything altogether. Hopefully, this still stays, but the federal agency responsible for, again, like ASTP ONC is the federal agency responsible. It used to be called ONC, then they renamed it to ASTP, but people don't know what ASTP is, so they always say ASTP/ONC, right? Epic announced in August that they would support this capability, but with a twist. The company supports the IAL2 standard to allow individuals to locate where they have received care, but not to request or retrieve their records. Typical Epic. Some industry cynics have privately claimed that Epic's stance will result in individuals still needing to have an existing or create a new MyChart account, which may increase fees Epic charges to the hospitals, as MyChart fees are volume-based and increase lock-in of Epic's ecosystem. An Epic spokesman flatly denies that use of MyChart strictly for authorization to share data via OAuth 2 does not increment any MyChart subscription counter. But, they can decide one day like, oh, you know what, we will actually charge for that as well. Who knows? Individually, each tactic may support a legitimate business purpose. For instance, while yo-yo might seem a crude term, it's consistent with Epic's generally playful and creative naming conventions. Changing its fee structure may reflect Epic making a course correction to a costly way of supporting customers, as an Epic spokesperson suggested. And as industry leaders and analyst Brendan Keeler has noted, Epic is a leader among EHRs when it comes to enabling individual access services. So it's hard to critique. And again, like Brendan Keeler, I think I've seen him a lot in, I've seen him a lot in some of our posts as well. Nice. Small world after all. Yeah. Taken altogether, however, the collective tactics are enough to have some industry insiders and investors concerned that they are anti-competitive, right? 100%, they're definitely anti-competitive. And in fact, as a business, I think everyone sort of wants to be a monopoly, right? Like that is a good business. But is Epic unfairly pressing its high ground advantage? Having grown organically since 1979 and only in the past decade becoming the leader in EHR, it's possible that Epic's insular culture blinds it to its own market strength and influence in adjacent markets. If so, it may behoove Epic to reflect on its issues following fellow tech giants who leverage dominant market position, blah, 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 Microsoft lawsuit, dominance, and things. And the more recent case against Google, in which Judge Mehta found the company recognize the power of default placement and distribution to illegally secure and expand its position. It's a lot of like anti-competitive stuff going on with Apple, Microsoft, almost like Facebook, all of the major ones, right? In Epic's case, the company holds a dominant position as the hospital's operating system. By removing existing APIs and interoperability resources to consumer-facing companies and changing fee structures, it is making it more cumbersome and expensive for hospitals to select alternative patient-facing technologies, making MyChart the default path forward. One outcome is that the perception that its tactics are exclusionary in nature and foreclose on innovation in an emerging market. 100%. This is like, there's no question about this, right? Like Epic definitely has access to these APIs and they can literally block it at any time unless a legislature comes out and tells them like, hey, please allow read patient on this particular resource. Like, yeah. So definitely there is an anti-competitive thing here, yet Epic arguably does not need to employ these tactics to win. MyChart seems well positioned to end up as the most robust, seamless and compelling ecosystem for consumers as a result of Epic's trusted relationships with hospitals, dominant market share and existing network effects. For the time being, and absent any force majeure preventing Epic from executing its plan, it looks like Epic's consumer strategy is likely to result in network effects that even more firmly entrench the company's position and establish another locus of power. If successful, Epic could find itself in a position like Apple, with the ability to extract a substantial revenue share from any developer seeking to access consumers for whom Epic would be the default digital front door. So, I don't think it will stop at developers, right? I think it will start charging hospitals more. It'll start charging patients more for access to better care. It could even start charging, like it's once you become the mediator or the intermediary, you can basically set what fee you want. And as a business, they always like you always tend towards making more profit, right? So I think this is not the end of this. This is gonna. I hope this doesn't cause like a dystopian future of healthcare. If you work in Verona, Wisconsin, this is a good thing. Maybe two if you are a consumer. Not so sure. Not so sure. But yeah, just it's an interesting take. I just wanted to see like what you think. Let me know in the comments down below. Do you think Epic competing like this is good? Do you think them being the entryway for patients to book appointments to different hospitals is a good thing? Maybe it's bad. What's your take? Let me know. And yeah, thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.